As mayor of our great city, it's an honor to deliver the State of the City address for the third time. As I share remarks with you today virtually, I'm reminded that across our city, we are a proud and strong community. This pandemic did not prevent the city of Pueblo from experiencing great successes throughout the year, as well as great sadness at the continued impact on the health of friends and family that COVID-19 brought to many of our homes. I have hope that next year we'll be able to gather in person for this event and properly recognize the many in our city who contribute to our city's growth and prosperity. Let me give a shout out to our hospitals, our medical providers, our businesses, our first responders, our frontline workers, our schools and colleges for your resiliency and your leadership to shepherd us through this pandemic. In the last 21 months, we've faced many challenges. It's been nearly 2 years since the first COVID case in Pueblo County, and we've lost more than 700 souls in our county to the virus since then. About a year ago, vaccines became available to anyone who wanted them, and most of the deaths in Pueblo County since that time have been unnecessary. Pueblo, we are still in the midst of this pandemic, and the situation is constantly changing, as is our response. What is not changing is that the way we end this pandemic is to get vaccinated. In Pueblo, we are not doing a very good job of getting vaccinated, and as a result, we have one of the highest infection rates and death rates from COVID in the state of Colorado. We are learning to live with the virus, and in 2021, we did so with minimal restrictions. No businesses were shut down, few capacity limits were imposed, but even the minimal requirement to wear masks in some situations was met with protest. The brunt of this fight against the virus has been borne by our medical professionals and our hospitals. Our hospitals have essentially been shut down for the last 12 months for anything other than emergencies and COVID cases. Elective procedures like joint replacements have effectively been canceled because there's no room in the hospital. Until we control the infection rate of the virus, I expect this will continue. Far too many Puebloans are accepting of the ideas that we might not be able to get our knee or shoulder replaced or get that surgery on our aching back, but at least we aren't being required to wear a mask indoors around strangers. My fellow Puebloans, the state of our city with respect to crime and criminal activity is not good. Our crime rate was up dramatically in 2021, and we set a record for the number of homicides in the city for a single year. This should be concerning to all of us, and it is little consolation that the rest of the country is experiencing the same thing. In some respects, this can be blamed on COVID. When COVID hit in 2020, the Department of Corrections and the Pueblo County Jail began releasing prisoners in the hopes that this would contain the COVID outbreaks in the prisons and the jails. As a result, we had many more bad guys on the streets. People on parole could not be put back in prison for technical violations of their parole. The Pueblo Police Department could not arrest individuals for certain crimes because they could not be taken to jail. This resulted in one of the more entertaining incidents of the year when the city of Pueblo made national news. Sean Hannity reported that I set a policy that no one could be arrested unless they stole more than $2,000 worth of property. This was fake news. The story was based on a report that the chief of police gave to the city council, but as they say, a lot was lost in the translation and the retelling. And while we can enjoy a laugh at the expense of the media, it's no laughing matter what is happening in Pueblo with respect to crime, and all of it cannot be blamed on COVID. There have been legislative changes that made it more difficult to be a police officer, and that has had an adverse effect on our recruitment efforts. Part of the reason for the increased criminal activity is our failure as a society to instill certain values in our young people. It seems like every young person has a gun, and that is the preferred method of settling disputes. It seems like every night there's a drive-by shooting, and sometimes they don't even wait until it gets dark. When you look at the data, it becomes clear that there is a criminal element that has regular contact and interactions with law enforcement, but for whatever reason, they're not kept in jail or prison, and when they get out, they go right back to what they were doing that got them put in the joint in the first place. If we want to have an effect on crime in our community, that has to change. We need to get back to a system of, if you do the crime, you do the time. Now, all too often, there are no consequences for bad behavior, and it is no longer a felony for a previous offender to be in possession of a gun unless the previous offense was of a specified type. Consequently, we have convicted felons running around with guns, and if caught, they get a ticket. You can imagine the frustration felt by a police officer dealing with this system and why law enforcement as a career is less and less attractive to our citizens. While we need to make sure that there are consequences for criminal behavior, we also must do more to prevent crime from happening in the first place. 2020 was a year of economic survival in Pueblo. In contrast, in 2021 was a year of economic development and growth. One needs only to look at our sales tax numbers for 2021 to recognize that things in Pueblo have turned. Sales tax numbers are up 28% through November of 2021, the latest numbers available. The City of Pueblo issued 669 new sales tax licenses in 2021. Many of those licenses were issued to those who were internet sellers who were not paying sales tax on items sold in Pueblo. The pessimists among us say it can't last. I disagree. We are in the throes of an economic boom in the City of Pueblo, the likes of which we have not seen in our lifetimes. We have no less than 3 national home builders building houses in new subdivisions in Pueblo. Everaz Steel is building their new long rail mill. Vestas sold their tower manufacturing plant to CS Winds, which is planning to expand their capacity so they can build towers for all of the other wind generation companies like they do all over the world. In 2021, Pedco continued to bring new companies and jobs to Pueblo. Ladies and gentlemen, since I became mayor, we've been and are making it easier to do business in the City of Pueblo. Last year, we went live on our electronic licensing and permitting system, which will have a grand opening next month. This program will be instrumental in the Pueblo Means Business Initiative, and we expect that in the next 18 months, Pueblo County and Pueblo West will join the system, giving us a regional competitive advantage. Our future is not without its challenges, but it is bright. Our economic expansion will finally, at long last, exceed that of the rest of Colorado, because the rest of Colorado is limited by something that Pueblo has in abundant supply: water. The citizens of the City of Pueblo have paid for and own the best municipal water supply in the state of Colorado, perhaps in all of the Southwest United States, and we must use it to our strategic advantage. Last year, Congress passed and the President signed the American Rescue Plan Act. This will result in $36.7 million being sent directly to Pueblo. We received the first half in May of 2021 and expect to receive the second half this May. Upon passage of the act, I conducted 5 town hall meetings in a week to gather input from citizens on projects that they believe would make a difference in our community. We have received 207 requests for funding from the community, and we've set up citizens committees to evaluate proposals and make recommendations for funding. To date, City Council has approved projects totaling more than $7 million for 28 projects that provide aid for small businesses, the homeless, the food insecure, working families, and nonprofits. Other projects remain under consideration, and we will continue to work on evaluating and funding those projects that will have a lasting effect in Pueblo. Our municipal airport, transit department, and housing department also receive funding from the American Rescue Plan Act. These funds are being used to support city services to the community. Last year, I shared with you that I would ask City Council to put a measure on the ballot that would impose a half-cent sales tax for street repairs and transportation projects. In discussing this matter with the City Council, it became clear that some members would not support a tax increase for street repairs, and a compromise was reached in the form of ballot issue 2A. That ballot issue debruces the city of Pueblo in perpetuity and allows the excess Tabor funds to be used for road repairs, which, as you know, is the #1 complaint of our citizens. As I say, this was not my first choice, but it was a compromise that was approved by the voters with 72% of the votes. It is not a steady source of income for street repairs, but based on our economic projections, it will produce funds in the next couple of years that will make substantial dents in our road repair projects. The 2022 budget allocates $10 million for street repairs this year. In November, the voters elected a new city council, and I'm excited to be working with them to move our community forward. There are new ideas and new perspectives on this city council that will make our city stronger. The written State of the City report will be released today and will be available on the city's website. This document contains reports from all of the city departments and compares their 2021 activities with those of previous years. As we look back at 2021, we can all see that as a city, we experienced challenges that we could not prevent. But we can also say proudly that as a city, we work together, celebrating our diversity to make good things happen. It's time for us all to create a brighter, more hopeful future. I'm honored to serve as the mayor of the city of Pueblo during these unprecedented times, and I'm looking forward to our continued recovery and growth. While at times during the past year, our challenges seemed insurmountable, we worked collaboratively as a community to creatively develop a pathway for a bright future. And while I can't think of a better time to be mayor, I'm hopeful that our days of mask wearing and social distancing will soon come to an end and we'll once again be able to gather without limits. Finally, I want to thank all of the dedicated employees of the city of Pueblo who have worked hard this year to continue to deliver services to our citizens. And I want to thank and acknowledge the leadership team of the city who met with me daily during the early days of the pandemic and regularly thereafter to ensure that the city of Pueblo could continue to deliver high-quality services to its citizens under these most unusual circumstances. Last but not least, I want to acknowledge the contributions of my partner, Jan Pullen. She's been on this journey with me from the beginning and has been there through thick and thin, through good and bad, and her comfort and support have allowed me to serve the citizens of the city of Pueblo. Ladies and gentlemen, not only does Pueblo have a proud history, it has a bright future. Thank you.